All right, I finished watching episode 8 of season 2 of the Fallout show. The Strip, definitely some answers to questions that have emerged during this season. I'll just go through the main storylines, I suppose. The most prominent one being Lucy and her father coming to a head in that Vault-Tec management base and then outside. Before that, Lucy had destroyed the head of Diane Welch. So one answer that we've gotten in this finale, we learned that Diane Welch had apparently been an unwitting pawn in the Enclave conspiracy. She really had been a super naive, super milquetoast, super well-meaning person. Her ISTP personality type in the Myers-Briggs inventory, as Hank mentions, the template for the ideal automatic man. She begs Lucy to kill her, and just the animation of the head is unnerving. She did have that feeding tube, and she had cataracts. And later, she's got blood stains on her dress. Was it just one blow that she struck, or did she bludgeon the face entirely? Simply removing the feeding tube, as I thought she wouldn't have been enough. In any case, Diane Welch in the present day is out of the picture. The mainframe still works. It's just that Diane Welch's brainwaves and personality would have been the model for like a software update, if you will. Flash forward a bit, Lucy is like on the verge of killing Hank. So there's one of two scenarios that everyone was expecting, I guess, that Lucy's going to kill Hank or let him go, but in this case, the ghoul shoots him in the ass. The callback to that first episode of the season. A major revelation in this episode is that, yes, Hank has been an acolyte, as he's called, an inside man for the Enclave. In that first episode of the season, him making that recording, that broadcast, I thought he was talking to Robert House all along, but I did acknowledge the possibility that he might have been communicating with the Enclave. It was clear that he was definitely working with a party outside of Vault-Tec. He mentions that the surface had been the experiments, not the vaults. I think the vaults and the surface can both serve as the setting for experiments, maybe different types. So they're not necessarily mutually exclusive situations. I was expecting Hank to blow up his head. I'm glad that he didn't. I don't think he explicitly mentions the Enclave, but he beats her to the punch, presses the button, and he becomes very docile, per the programming of the automatic man, the miniaturized machine that Lucy had implanted into him. So I think you have to put it into someone's neck so it attaches to their brainstem. Maybe down the road, the Enclave or some other party will develop a mind control device that can attach maybe lower on the spine so it's hidden. But Lucy is without her father, as she has come to know him as of now. I'm glad that Kyle MacLachlan can still be in the show, not just in flashbacks. And another revelation is that he had been married to Stephanie. I didn't necessarily know, but I definitely thought it was a possibility. Where else but Vegas? It was pretty clear to me that they had some connection beyond Vault-Tec. And speaking of Steph, she has her back to the wall. She opens up that box. It's a Pip-Boy. Really cool looking one. It's black, got the Enclave logo, and she says, initiate phase 2. It's interesting to note that she says her name, but then she adds to it that she's Hank McClane's wife, and she mentions that she's not quite sure how it works. The Vault Dwellers outside her office, they turn into your cartoonishly bloodthirsty mob. I thought they would have been more like reasonably and righteously incensed. Chet kind of turns and smiles when he sees the other Vault 32 dwellers turn against Stephanie. One of them starts the death to management chant, and that echoes that scrawling on the wall that he and Norm had found in season 1 when they had ventured into Vault 32. Chet's expression is kind of interesting, and I don't know if he's necessarily on board with the death to management sentiment. People are speculating that phase 2 might be the implementation of the FEV, the something virus that turns people into mutants or super mutants. The rift in Vault 33 between Betty and Reg hasn't been resolved in this episode. I'm sure that will pick up in season 3. Norm, resolution to his arc for this season is disappointing. It's the most predictable of all. Everyone suspected that Buds would die, except for Claudia, and that they would die as a result of those rad roaches in those elevator shafts that Ma June and Barb had been farming. Ronnie, the antagonist who's emerged, he is the architect of his downfall. He's the one who knocks Claudia away, and that's what allows those rad roaches to come in, shoving Norm at the door, struggling with him as he's trying to come in. If he had just let Norm into that room, they would have been able to shut the door and keep the rad roaches out. I guess the showrunners are trying to convey that if you do evil, it'll come back to bite you. Norm selflessly helps another Bud's bud, and it's to show his righteous and resilient nature. He leaves the building with Claudia in tow, literally in tow on top of some kind of cart. I really thought Buds would be more of a factor going forward, but I guess not. The architect of that program, Bud, is dead, and so are his junior executives. Maximus, he's got the Superman-style origin story. And here he is in Freeside, fighting off those death claws. That would be a really cool sequence to play in a video game. If he kills like 5 of them and then his suit malfunctions, but he thinks back to his parents, their final moments together. He ditches the suit that would have probably killed him anyway. He's ready to fight to the death. The last son of Shady Sands. Meanwhile, those citizens are holed up in that building, taking bets on how many he'll kill before he dies. Thaddeus bets the house on him, saves him with the one-armed sniper shot from atop that roof. Just in the nick of time, somewhat contrived, but an NCR sniper takes out a death claw. And then this company-sized detachment of NCR soldiers march in. They're led by that black officer whom the Ghoul and later the Ghoul and Lucy had met at that outpost. One of those rangers is the person whom Hank had captured and brainwashed, reprogrammed in the vault. So maybe they were heading there anyway in search of that missing ranger. And you can't talk about the NCR without talking about the Legion. Macaulay Culkin's character dragging the body of the original Kaiser. He reads the note that the Legion would die with him. He had no viable successor in his perspective, but he looks at it, eats the paper, and then he stabs the nearby Legionnaire who would have been the witness, and he claims that he is the new Kaiser, referring to Vegas as a holy land and how they're going to build a Kaiser's palace. There's been a stalemate within the Legion. There's no viable successor who's emerged. So for him to kind of look and feel like a fish out of water, it totally fits. They march toward Vegas. Lucy and Maximus reunite. They've been apart for the bulk of this season. I would say Maximus has become more interesting. I think that's the consensus. Again, they make a good pairing, not just romantically. I mean, that's kind of debatable. But in terms of like, as a pair to survive and fight, Lucy's got the book smarts. Maximus has the street smarts. And of course, the Ghoul, he finally gets to the inner vault area. He finds the cryo chambers of his wife and daughter with the help of Mr. House, Robert House, who's been guiding him. They're empty, but he sees a postcard from Colorado and a handwritten note that Colorado would have been a good idea. And that's a reference to, they're talking about where they can go. She suggests going to Bakersfield as he had previously suggested, but then he says, why not further away like Colorado? Cooper had been arrested for un-American activities, and just as those agents are closing on him, he tells Barb that he's going to take the fall. Him being arrested in public for being a communist sympathizer, that explains how in the series premiere he's doing birthday parties for money with his daughter. Those two dads allude to it, paying for alimony. I mentioned that he's a pinko. He and Barb are not together, at least publicly. He's taken the fall. Throughout this series, the Ghoul is referred to his wife, as opposed to his ex-wife. It's more interesting narratively for him to continue to search. Honestly, wouldn't be upset if like they aren't reunited until the finale of the series, but I know that would maybe upset a lot of people dragging things along for too much. There's also the possibility that he meets with them and they're live, assuming that they're human and not ghouls or mutants. They might not be as he remembers them. They might have thawed and just age naturally the way that Hank and Betty have. There's also the possibility that they're not actually alive, that postcard had been planted. It's not even definitive proof. It's just a strong clue that they had at least survived the initial bombing. But for the ghoul, that's enough. That's enough to keep him going. I was watching the credits and seeing the listings for the actors for Dane and Quintus, and I thought to myself, they didn't appear in this episode. Were their scenes cut or something? No, mid-credit scene. Dane brings a scroll, and then Quintus opens it up, and it turns out to be blueprints for Liberty Prime, which I guess is like a super mech, superpower armor. Again, I'm not familiar with the games, but then Quintus at that point, he rechristens himself from Quintus the Unifier to Quintus the Destroyer, and that's happening as there's fighting. There's so many conflicts, right? NCR, Legionnaire, Brotherhood on the west side amongst each other. Brotherhood chapters on the west side versus the Commonwealth on the east side. The Enclave versus everybody. From what I can tell, season 3 will start shooting in a few months. It probably won't air until next year. I might actually play one of the Fallout games while waiting for season 3. Good episode. I wouldn't say a great episode. It's tied up the loose ends of this season fairly well. Of course, there's more to be answered, more to be explored. This series as a whole is good. It's like the exemplar of how to adapt a video game property. Don't just retell the stories that the games have told. Dive deeper into the surrounding universe. Season 2 finale, overall good, and I'm wanting more.